Alrighty. I had intended to do this as a live stream, but it is a school night and I must get to bed really soon. And so I'm going to do this as a video and we can do a follow-up in the future if anybody wants to, go through it more slowly, and, participate, have a conversation through the chat, or maybe even have a group live stream if there's any interest in doing something like that. But for now, we're just going to do a quick slideshow. I'm going to get right to it. Now, before we begin this, I should mention also, if you're sensitive to the images from that day, in particular, there will be one image in the set that, looks particularly disturbing. It could be human, biomatter onto the ground from a person who jumped, or it could just be something else altogether. But I need to warn you, because if you do not want to see something like that, please tune out now. Please do not get mad and do not get sick because you stayed around for that particular picture. It's only one picture, but it's pretty nasty if it is what I think it is. So I just want to give you the heads up on that. I guess I can give you a time index on that. In fact, I'm going to flash the time on the screen, the precise time that image comes up. So you may skip that particular time index from the start point to the end point that you see on the screen. Skip that part if you do not want to see somebody's blood and guts on the ground. And with that said, let's proceed with the slideshow. But essentially the first sets of photos in the image folder, these seem to be taken later. So for some reason or another, these pictures are, taken later than the rest of the set. I don't know why they appear first in sequence. Maybe the guy formatted the memory card or something like that, or deleted pictures manually. I bet you he ran out of memory on his memory card and then deleted older pictures, and then that's how the pictures from earlier in the day come up later in the set. But what I can do is show you the metadata here, and if we look here, we can see that these pictures here, these pictures in the early part of the memory card, at least from here up until we see the first tower on fire, everything up to here was taken on September 12th, starting at 8:31 a.m. And so we're going to take a quick browse there, but essentially what we're looking at is a set of photos taken by a sanitation department worker. This man was either a chief or a deputy commissioner or something like that. Now I believe this might be NYPD. I'd have to take a closer look at his badge. The resolution isn't really that high in these pictures, but you can see that man is clearly a sanitation man. That is a Chevy Lumina in the back. Obviously, we got a fire truck hooked up to a hydrant or something to pump water. Moving forward, we got some, fire extinguishers and what looks like leftover breathing equipment and wrecked out vehicles. I believe that might be one of the hotels, Liberty Hotel or Plaza Hotel. I always mix them up. And we got some generators installed because this is the morning after. So by this point, they've had time to deploy, generator lights. National Guardsmen, participating in the cleanup and presumably search and rescue. S&R dog right there. Now, during the search and rescue operation, the dogs were, starting to get depressed because they weren't finding bodies at a certain point, and so, or they weren't finding live bodies at a certain point. So some of the workers had to basically hide and be found by the dog to help the dog, feel better, help the dogs feel better about, not finding anybody. But yeah, this is Lower Manhattan, 2001. Looks like we got some steel workers or just other types of rescue workers trying to use some kind of acetylene torch. In fact, I see a couple guys using torches here. Now, throughout, you'll see most of these guys aren't wearing proper masks. A few of them do wear masks. I saw one guy somewhere wearing a proper, whatchamacallit, like respirator mask. But most of these people, I get it, they want to breathe. Now, we get this guy here. He's not wearing 100% right correctly, but he's at least got the right idea with regard to what he's wearing. Now, they wanted to, like people in charge of procurement at sanitation wanted to order proper respirators, but there was this, whole OSHA requirement and some issues regarding like having to train the people properly for wearing the masks. When you're laboring, in the daytime, these masks could really make it challenging. You really have to be well practiced or trained in wearing a mask while performing heavy labor. Okay, so now we got the first picture here, and so we're going to cycle back to my main monitor, And we can actually pull up a properties page right here. Now, zoomed in on it so we can get a closer look. Now, this is the file information. It says modified Tuesday, September 11th, 9:07 a.m. So modified date just means that's the date the picture was taken, whereas the file was created in 2015 because that was a point in time where I must have copied it from one file system to another. And so it basically, that's the date it was created on that file system. But, really we care about the modified date in this case, since, this is the precise time according to the camera, whatever the settings were set. The camera could have the wrong settings, but if the camera had the correct date and time set, this information is accurate. And we see that also in the details pane. The details page also has things like the resolution, the color attributes. It has the brand name Fujifilm camera, the model FinePix 1400 zoom. It's got the f-stop or aperture setting that was used. It has the ISO that was used, most likely in automatic mode. The focal length, if it was using zoom, for example. Max aperture that's available on this camera apparently is listed here. What type of light metering mode was used. You can change it and save it if you want. We do not want to change that, but I do want to point out, this information can certainly be tampered with, but I'm just going to have to ask you to take my word for it that I have not modified this info, and this information was obtained so quickly, within a day of 9/11 that, the only two people I'm aware of who would doctor the information wouldn't be doctoring it, so I don't really have any doubts at all. But I can understand, if I was a stranger, you might doubt the veracity of, the metadata you're looking at right now. But anyway, let's get back to the main screen now that we've gotten that out of the way. So basically now the man is driving or being driven to the site. The buildings are still standing at this particular time in the morning. Like we said, it was like 9:02 a.m. here. So now we got a picture taken at 9:02 a.m. and we just kind of walk through it. We got papers falling out. We got, the, point of impact right here, apparently, where the passenger airliner most likely made its way in. Now, this is where it gets interesting, in my opinion. This here may very well be a part of a jet engine, and I don't know how long it's been on the ground. But once again, we can take a look at the properties, and we can see here that we're looking at 9:07 a.m. So we could, figure out what time the impact happened and backtrack from there. But in a moment, we're going to see this jet engine over back here. Now, I don't know how this piece got here. My guess is, if I was to, identify the street corner, I could probably then point it out on a map during a more comprehensive stream or during my own time. But either the engine fell out of the plane and tumbled on the ground until it settled here, and maybe a piece broke off from all of the momentum and one piece went here and the larger piece went here. I did send this to a guy at one point who was, asserting that it was all staged, and I said, well, I got a picture of a jet engine, and he kind of insinuated, oh, well, I saw a truck in the background, maybe that truck dropped it off. So I was like, okay, whatever, the guy can believe what he wants. But my opinion is that, I showed this to a coworker. My coworker argued that it was an air conditioning unit, but this is not what air conditioning units look like. Now, if you're questioning that it doesn't look like a jet engine, that's understandable, because normally on a passenger airliner, what we're seeing is a pod. We're seeing an enclosure for the jet engine. On the front of that pod are the, impeller fans, or the fans themselves on the front of the intake. Behind that, you have compressor blades. So you actually have multiple stages of blades in the compressor stage. It's almost like counter-rotating blades that are, leaning in different angles, and they basically take the air that's coming into the front and compress it. Then, jet fuel is mixed with that air. You get an air-fuel mixture. That combustion helps it to continue the spinning of the turbine, but also, of course, produces thrust as it's pushing the compressed air out the back along with the, heat. And so my guess is that, all of the weak parts of the airplane, remember, airplane aluminum is going to be lightweight. It's not designed to handle a hard impact, but the jet engine, on the other hand, has to handle, extreme pressures and extreme temperatures. So this would have been, strong enough to survive, falling out of the plane while the plane fell apart around it. The density and weight of this would have had the ability to fly through the building and come out the other side, in my opinion. And the lack of blades, well, I mean, the fan blades, those are like pretty weak right there. They're flexible, they're weak. I have no doubt that would have fallen off. As for the compressor blades are sometimes made out of titanium. Other times they're made out of something like ceramic, and ceramics tend to snap, right? You know, they don't really flex. They're going to just snap. So I'm not really surprised that there's nothing left here. I mean, this is a plane that was operating and spinning at high throttle when, you know, it made impact and when it was, you know, shaken loose from the airplane. And so this is like, you know, one of the reasons I'm even showing this slideshow right now is because I believe this is strong evidence that planes hit the building. Say what you will about, you know, Building 7 or other factors or foul play revolving around the whole thing, but any conspiracy narrative that I would build it around the assumption that planes did indeed hit the buildings. And then, you know, of course, you might say, okay, you might accept that planes hit the building, but you might say a different plane hit the building. I'm not going to go down to that rabbit hole right now, but I'm just going to say this is a point of evidence that planes hit the building. And, you know, at some point we could certainly sit down and try to map the trajectory or how this thing tumbled around. But I do find it very telling that the engine is still emitting smoke. It looks like it made a hard impact that dented it to create this slanted shape, and that is probably why we have another smoking piece right over here. So we're gonna move forward now. That lady looks like she's, you know, heavily distressed, holding her cell phone. Some people apparently had cell phone service, but I do remember it was impossible to get through to my dad. He had to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to get a shuttle bus back to Staten Island because the express bus, of course, isn't going to pick you up in Lower Manhattan. Once they lock down Lower Manhattan, the express bus is not picking you up. So, of course, you know, luckily they, the MTA and the city, I guess, Office of Emergency Management, you know, made appropriate arrangements to get people home. And people working in the city would be commuting anywhere from, you know, they'd be commuting to different parts of Staten Island, or they'd be commuting back to parts of Brooklyn, parts of Queens, or Bronx. Now, granted, the express bus certainly is a big hit in Staten Island. I mean, it's one of the easiest ways to commute to the city. Whereas in other parts, you know, if you're commuting to Brooklyn, you could probably take a train into Brooklyn, you know. Of course, you still have to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to catch that train, but it's an option. So anyway, moving along here, let's see what else we got here. I believe buildings are still standing at this point in time. We got some wreckage over here. Let's double check our timestamp here. Okay, so right here, we got 9:08 a.m. apparently. Is that accurate? I don't know if I trust that. It does say 9:08 a.m. I'm going to question that for now, but I don't really have any way to not. I mean, we still have the building standing up there, definitely on fire. Okay, this gentleman's being helped. Apparently his leg got injured. This guy's awestruck. Okay, this is a sideways portrait view. The guy used the zoom feature on the lens to get a closer look here. Once again, we got office papers. My mom had a friend who lived near the area, and yeah, papers from the buildings were falling onto her deck. You know, she's like 10 floors up or something like that, and yeah, papers were falling. That's interesting. That might be another piece of jet engine, or that could just be a street post, a street sign post. Can't really be sure. Okay, now this guy's very close to the building while it's still standing. I have no idea. My dad tried reaching out to the guy. We don't know, you know, okay, this is the picture. Now, at a glance, you know, every time I look at this picture, I go back and forth between thinking it's real and fake. But, you know, we got like a pen, someone's personal effects. I'm leaning towards blood and guts because, I mean, I think that's a boot. I never noticed that before, but that looks like a damn boot. And I apologize if this is absolutely disturbing and disgusting. But, you know, it's relevant historical stuff. I'm not really sure if that's a boot or if someone's body is covered here. Like maybe that's a limb that came off and they're covered up with a blanket. But, you know, I used to think I saw teeth in here, but I think it's just white stuff. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's pretty nasty, I know. So let's move forward here. Okay, they're presumably leaving the perimeter. By some miracle, the buildings are still effing standing up right now. 9:17 a.m. Okay, so now we'll keep moving forward here. Okay, once again, woman is heavily distressed. A lot of people are distressed here. Nobody's fucking happy. Understandably so. Man is consoling a young lady. Okay, we got some smog. This man was in the thick. He's giving a cigarette and giving a man a light for a cigarette. It's like, you know, some human condition type shit right over here, in my opinion. Now, this looks like it's much later in the day. I suspect the buildings are in the ground, or this is the following morning. So apparently we skip straight to 6:44 a.m. On the final image in the set, and then after 6:44 a.m. we jump to 8:31 a.m. on 9/12. So you know, yeah, we get like a little time jump there. But now the rest of these images are the following day, as we saw earlier in the slideshow. And yeah, that's basically the 9/11 photo set that I would consider pretty much first-hand evidence from a person who was actually there. You know, that I obtained by proxy, you know, from co-worker or associate of my father, passed on to me. And yeah, that's it. Other than that, all I can say from first-hand accounts is that my father heard the planes hit the building, but he was inside a enclosed office, so he wasn't looking out the window right at the time, but it sounded like a then it like basically had this abrupt stop and like the vibration and rumble of what we later figure out to be the explosion of the jet fuel and what have you. But I don't really have much to add. I really got to get myself to bed. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope I shared something new, or at least, you know, gave you another perspective on that horrible day, without, you know, giving you a dose of opinion or too much opinion. You know, I definitely wanted to avoid opinion, and, you know, different rabbit holes. I want to avoid rabbit holes, at least right now. But if people want to join me in a discussion on this, maybe a hangout stream or some kind of show stream where we just look at the photos more closely and discuss them, I'm down for that. So let me know. And if otherwise you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, please leave a comment below. And for now, we shall end transmission.